So my name is Douglas Katz, and I am the chef partner at Zug in Cleveland Heights, at Amba in Ohio City, and I'm chef partner at Provenance at the Cleveland Museum of Art. We're about to open a new restaurant called Kiln, which will be at Van Aken. So today I'm making pan-seared chicken thighs that are in an onion and lentil and fennel ragu sauce with the side of tomato salad with tahini, sort of a pickle juice tahini dressing with some sumac and basil. You don't need this pot, but whenever you're buying pots for braising or sauteing, you want to buy a heavy gauge pot that can stand up to the heat. It'll create a much better crust when we sear our chicken if it's a heavy duty pot. If it's really thin, it can have sections that are hot and colder, and you'll get more unevenness in the browning. So I like to buy a nice heavy pot. So use your heaviest pot for this type of cooking. And I just like to cut my tomatoes horizontally, just through, so that you have nice circular pieces, but you can cut them all different ways if you like. This will be a tomato salad, so it'll be beautiful to have all different cuts and different shapes. And I have different colors as well, so I'll cut some long and some short, but typically I do like to cut them horizontally so that they just display well when they're open. And these are nice, sweet grape tomatoes. Some yellow ones and some red. Maybe even a few teardrop tomatoes in there. So I think that's a nice amount of tomatoes because I have the large ones as well. The rest of the tomatoes you can leave out if you're going to eat them in the next couple days, but I'm going to put these in my refrigerator just to preserve them a little bit. And then I have the big tomatoes too. I'm just going to cut out the stem end just so it's nice and clean. And I'm going to set these right up on my plate because I want to see sort of how this will all work together. This isn't my presentation plate, but I just want to slice them and have them on a similar size plate to see how it will look when I actually go to plate the salad. So some of these, I could leave these whole if they were a little bit smaller, but they're so large that I like to keep them, I like to cut them in half. And then I just slice down. So that'll make a nice base to our platter. And then these baby tomatoes will go on top. And I'll probably use a slightly larger plate for this. And I just leave a few extras to snack on. And if you just put a little bit of salt on a tomato, it brings out the moisture in the tomato. And it's a great little snack. Yum. So when I'm cutting an onion, I cut it through so that the root end is attached. I don't want to lose that root end because it keeps the onion intact while I'm cutting it. If I were to dice this onion, it would be super important. I'm just going to slice these onions, and I'm going to actually slice them in quarters so that they're just a nice size for my stew. And so again, I'm slicing towards the root end. And you want to tuck your fingers. I like these about maybe 1/4 inch thick. And in a different season, I would use leeks. I could use different onions based on what's available. You could use just all white onion if you like. But I like to mix the different flavors. And you could do all of these at once, but I like to just have control. So I like to just and watch the ones that get away from you. Sometimes I'll angle my knife this way so that they don't end up on the floor. And I use the green and the white parts of the onion. And if your cutting board slides a little bit, you can always use a paper towel to keep it stable. Super important. You don't want it to be moving around while you're cutting. So I'm noticing my cutting board is a bit unstable, so I'm just going to take a paper towel or a cloth and just make sure that's nice and damp. And it'll help secure that mat so that it doesn't move around. Just a little bit more onion. If you have shallots or if you have other types of alliums, those would be great in this dish as well. And if you didn't like lentils, you could use potatoes or another bean of some kind. Just make sure to soak them first because beans just need a long time to soften and lentils don't need as much time. So if you want to use beans, you would just want to soak those overnight. Is this okay? Okay. And then with the garlic, I like to take the little top of the clove off, just the dirty parts, the root ends. And I start by just slicing those. might notice too, this is my chef's knife. I like this. It's I think this is an 8-inch chef's knife. I don't like the really long ones, the really heavy ones. It's harder to manage them. So I like one that I can control. And really when you're buying a knife, you just want one that's really comfortable in your hand. This is a European style knife. The Japanese knives are lighter and sometimes easier to manage. And then once these are sliced, I just chop from there and I try and keep it in a nice even pile. And I just try and keep it in a nice pile. And then every once in a while, I'll just get the garlic off of my knife and reform it into that pile. A lot of times people will put garlic in the food processor and in a blender, and unfortunately those are great time-saving tools, but the liquid from these vegetables comes out of the vegetable and really changes the texture and changes how it affects your recipe. So I like to do hand chopping as much as possible because the water, the liquid stays in your vegetables. Whereas when you puree them in a machine like that, it tends to, all the liquid comes out and you lose all of that flavor. And you could mince this. I'm gonna leave this a little bit larger because I want some of those pieces in our stew. And I leave the garlic separate because I added it at a different point in the recipe. Just rinse my board. If I were to do something sweet or a different process on my cutting board after doing garlic, you would want to wash it thoroughly because you don't want that garlic flavor on any of your other recipes or in any of your other recipes. But because all of this is being incorporated together, it's okay to keep it just rinsed. Next, I'm going to do my fennel. I cut through the root of the fennel. The best part of the fennel is this little sort of V-shaped root end. I cut the end off of my fennel, just like that. And I take this outer really tough skin off, and we could use this in our dish, but it is still very tough, and so even when it cooks down, there may be some stringiness. So I like to keep that separate, and you can even snack on it, or this would be great if you were pickling fennel. You could use this as part of a pickled fennel because it just would help break it down and add flavor to that. This is really what I want in my finished fennel pieces. And like I was saying, the inside is the best part, this root end. So I tend to, a lot of times people will just throw this away, but this is the best piece, and I'm gonna see if someone wants to try that. But I just V-cut that out. And really I'm cutting that out just so that it cooks evenly with the onions. It's a little thick, the root end is thick, but it's a great thing to snack on. Cut that little root end off. Okay. And then I use a bigger knife just to slice these down. And if it gets thick or too big on the root end, you can cut that in quarters and continue slicing. We're just trying to get all of our vegetables to be similar in size and shape. Does anyone want to try that fennel? So next I'm just going to slice these down. You could do 2 at a time or 3 at a time. I like to slice peppers with the skin up because it just, if the skin's down, sometimes you don't cut through all of the skin. So to make the tahini dressing for the salad, it's the simplest thing that you can do. And what you should know is it's about half the amount of tahini to liquid, but you can alter that. You could do 1 to 1 and it'll be thicker. You could do 3/4 to 1 and it'll be thicker but not quite as thin as a dressing texture. And I put my liquid into the bowl first. So I'll put what I think is a good amount for my salad. And then I stir my tahini. And you should always stir your tahini in the jar. Make sure it's nice and smooth. There's usually, it separates like maybe you'd see peanut butter separate, so you want to stir it together. And then you just add that tahini into the dressing. Delicious. Tahini often can be bitter, and it actually sits too long often, and it can have a rancid flavor. So when you buy tahini, it should taste, there should be a sweetness, there should be an earthiness. You should not have a lot of aftertaste if you're buying a good tahini. And then all I do with this mixture is I stir it. Can you see that okay? But in about 10 to 20 seconds, if you just keep stirring, it turns into this really beautiful creamy sauce. I compare it to sort of a mayonnaise texture or a ranch dressing texture. This is the best dip for your vegetables. This is going to be so delicious with the tomatoes. The salt from the pickle juice is going to just create a really nice flavor. And I'll dress the tomatoes with a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of honey as well, and that'll balance well. So you can just see how this turned into this really great creamy dressing. And it took maybe 35 seconds to make. I put this on my lettuce. Lettuce has so much water, and if you see what we did, we mixed liquid into the tahini, and tahini absorbs liquid. So if you think of wet lettuce being combined with tahini, when you toss it together, it'll hold on to your lettuce and it'll create the best salad dressing, like a Caesar salad dressing or a ranch. And you're not having any of the dairy, or it's a very healthy dressing that does the same thing. So I'm just going to set that aside. You can chill that until you're ready to use it as well. You could also add a little bit of sumac. Sumac has a nice acidity. It would be a great garnish, and I might do that at the end. But now I'm going to start searing my chicken. Okay. I like to marinate my tomatoes for about a half hour. So before I start my chicken, even for about an hour, I just want to marinate them. And so I like to take a little bit of sherry vinegar. Sherry vinegar has a great acidity. It's a delicious vinegar. So I start with my vinegar. And I'm putting about maybe a tablespoon or 2 of vinegar in. I like to drizzle in some of my local honey. Actually, my chef at the Cleveland Museum of Art has beehives and makes honey, so this is his honey that I love to keep. And I just put a little bit of honey into that salad to help sweeten up the tomatoes. And salt will help pull the moisture out, so I put a little bit of salt as well. A little bit of pepper. And then I just finish with a little bit of olive oil. And then I just give those a toss. And that honey will dissipate in with the sherry vinegar, and it'll add a really nice acidity to the tomatoes. And you can already see they glisten, and it'll enhance the sweetness. So all of my chicken has been dried, and I have the skin side up, and I'm just going to take my salt and I'm going to sprinkle it. I think of it as a rain shower. I hold my salt pretty high up over the chicken. If I hold it too close, I'm going to get pockets of salt, so I like to just hold it higher up. And I go pretty liberally with this salt. You really want that flavor to enhance the chicken. I flip that over, and I season the other side as well. And I take this glove off, and I season the chicken flesh side because I want that pepper to enhance the flavor of the chicken, but I don't like to get the speckles on my skin of my chicken. And then I've preheated a really heavy pan right here. I'm going to put this back into the pan skin side down first. I use a little bit of my cooking oil, about 2 ounces. And that oil's ready when you start to see it shimmer, and it looks sort of like a river stream. And you can see it right now how it gets really nice and liquid. And I put my chicken in skin side down and try and do it so that it's away from you. And if you hear that noise, that means you're cooking. And once it's in the pan, do not move it. Just let it sit there. Don't reposition it, just leave it where you dropped it. I do like to make sure all of my skin, all of the surfaces of the skin are touching the fat of the chicken, because that'll give you a nice even golden skin color. So once all of the chicken is seared, then I drain this pan of all of the fat, and I will then saute my vegetables, and then I'll add the chicken back once I've added the stock and the wine to the pan. So I'm just heating up some fresh oil to my pan. And when that's nice and hot, I'll add my vegetables. So now that oil is rippling, then I'll add all of the onions and the vegetables. And I added about 2 ounces of oil to that pan. And I'll cook this over a medium-high heat. I'll add the bay leaf and a little bit of sumac. And I'm going to sprinkle my chicken with a little sumac too, because I like that acidity that will enhance that flavor of that chicken. Also, don't be afraid if you feel like you didn't add enough fat at the beginning. You can always add a little bit more to the pan. This dish especially is nice with some of that oil or olive oil or whatever you could even use a nut oil in this. And you can start to smell that fennel and the onion all cooking out. And now that the vegetables are softened, I'll add my garlic. The garlic burns very easily, so I like to add that last. And I stir that in. At this point, all of our vegetables are softened. I'm going to add about a teaspoon or maybe a teaspoon and a half of turmeric. Add my bay leaf. And a thyme sprig. Couple pieces of sage, and a short clump of rosemary, just to add extra flavor. And I'll stir that around the pan, and this will dry out your pan, which is really what you're looking for, because the next thing is we will deglaze with wine. So I'm trying to pull as much moisture out of this pan as possible before I add that wine. And you can see the beautiful color that the turmeric adds to this mixture. And it'll continue doing that as well. I'll just stir that for about a minute. And then I'll deglaze with my wine. And I give it one more stir. And I'll add about a cup and a half of wine to this mixture. I just love that acidity. And then I'll sprinkle in about 3 tablespoons of lentils. I don't want to have too much lentil in this mixture because I want it to be mostly vegetables, but I want to have a little bit of that speckle, a little bit of that heartiness in this stew. And I'll let that just cook down a little bit. You can start to smell that wine. Once the wine is reduced, I add my bone broth or my chicken stock. And if you make your own stock, that's even better. And I'll just deglaze with this stock. And in this recipe, I use about a quart. And I'll let all of those flavors meld in that stock. Move my vegetables around, let that come back to a simmer. And this is our poaching liquid for the chicken. And you can see how that has a really nice golden color. Has great flavor from the wine. And I'll put the chicken in skin side down. I want the flavor from that searing to go into the liquid. And I just put each piece into that braise. And the fat from the chicken will really enhance the flavor of this broth. And I get all those pieces in there. And I'll allow this to cook for about an hour. I want to save all of that juice that I got out of the chicken as well. And then I'll just reduce this to a simmer. And I like to have the lid a little bit off of the top just so that some of the steam can just keep working itself into this mixture. And you can see that the chicken is just really braising nicely in our pan. And you can see how the liquid is really actually getting a little bit richer, even from the lentils, and we still need about 25 more minutes or so. So for my tomato salad, you see I've sliced the tomatoes, I have my marinated tomatoes, and I'm just going to toss these tomatoes around a little bit. And I want to put my tahini dressing down on the plate first. And I want to see some of that dressing once the dish is all plated. So I just like to swoosh it on the middle, and then I'm just going to take a few of these tomatoes and I'm going to fan them out on my plate. Just like that. And then I'll take a bunch of my small tomatoes and garnish the top. I'll give a little bit more salt, a little bit of sumac, and then some fresh basil. I like a garnish piece of basil that I can just tuck in, and just a couple other leaves that can just garnish that plate. And I like some small ones and some big ones that I can just decorate the plate with. And so that's how I would serve either a portion of the salad or with the chicken. To garnish this tomato salad is with some fresh feta. And I got this Bulgarian feta from the market today as well. And it's my favorite. It's a nice creamy feta, really rich. And I just take a few crumbles of the feta, and it adds just such a nice color to the dish. And you don't need much. So the chicken is nice and braised. So I do some pottery, and I made this bowl, and I love serving in dishware that is appealing as well. So I love this chicken just served in a bowl. When you're putting it in, make sure that you strain out all of the stemmy herbs that we put in, the thyme, the bay leaf, and I like to just put all of my vegetables, my fennel, in the bowl first. And then I take a piece of my chicken, which is nicely braised, and I put that right on top. Maybe a little bit more around, but I like to see the top of the chicken, that nice sear that we created. And some of the lentils. And I'll just clean up the edges a little bit. And it would be beautiful just garnished with a little bit of fennel frond, if you like. And I like to take a little bit of lemon just to enhance the acidity, as well as a little bit of fresh olive oil.